This is a good news, bad news scenario. I'm here to tell you about the secret ingredient which makes the creative world go round. That's the good news. It is something that anyone who's ever been creative has engaged with, which is also good news. But very few talk about it, which is bad news. But the real bad news is that this secret ingredient has a very bad rep. But let me digress just a little bit and talk to you about an incident which happened recently. I had gone to present my poetry at a poetry festival in Chennai to a group of high school students. And these were students who were liberally endowed with the 3 C's. And by that, I do not mean the 3 C's of consumerism, such as company, customers, and competitors, which is rampant today, but the 3 C's that we hope our future generation will have. We would like them to be confident, to be considerate, and above all, to be curious. So these students were that. They were curious, and they listened with great attention to what I was saying. But at the end, what they wanted to know was whether there was some quality without which no creative work could be made. Was there perhaps a magical formula, a secret tool with which creativity could be jump-started? Well, yes and no, I said. No magic formula, no secret tool, but there is a quality without which I believe no creative work can be made, and it is a quality that is largely overlooked. And so, drum roll please, this secret ingredient is discipline. I know. I'm here to make a case for that much maligned quality of discipline. I'm here to rescue discipline from the rubbish heap of the 21st century. And if that is not a startling enough idea, it's not just any kind of discipline that I'm talking about. I'm talking about rebellion and discipline. I'm talking about the art of rebellious discipline. In that auditorium, as probably this auditorium, this was not the answer that they wanted to hear to the question, what is the secret ingredient of creativity? There is this preconceived notion of the artist as this talented creature who lolls about waiting for inspiration to strike. Well, you do need inspiration and you do need talent, but without the discipline to make something of these things, nothing creative can be achieved. So I do accept that discipline is not a sexy word. It's not even a cool word. But give me the opportunity to make you rethink this word by looking at discipline both as an action and a verb, and as an activity and a noun. So this is a picture of my parents when they were very young. My father was a general in the army, and I do believe that one of the greatest gifts he gave me, by example, was an understanding for the need for discipline, not as an act of unquestioning obedience or as an end in itself, but as the great enabler that gets things done. He would always say discipline is self-motivation, and at the end of the day, that's the only thing you can rely on. And he had a favorite story to illustrate this. I think all fathers have favorite stories. He did have one too. And it was about a group of birds who'd made their nests on the tree in a farmer's land. One day the farmer said, he told his farmhand, I would like this tree cut down because I want to use that land to plow more crops. So all the birds were very worried, and they went to the mama matriarch bird and said, we've got to move. And the matriarch bird didn't break a sweat, and she said, relax, nothing will happen. And nothing did. The next week, the farmer told his son, when you have the time, please cut down that tree. I need the land to sow more crops. Again, the birds flew up to the matriarch bird, and again she said, don't worry. The next week, the farmer told his wife, could you cut down that tree when you have the time? Again, the birds went to the matriarch bird. Again, she said, don't worry. And this went on till one day, the farmer, as he was walking by, he stood with his hands on his hips and looked at the tree, and he said, with some exasperation, I think I'm going to have to wake up early next morning and cut down this tree myself. At once the matriarch bird got up, fluffed out her feathers and said, "Right, guys, time to move." In other words, if you don't have the self-discipline to do things yourself, nothing in your life will move. I mean, think about it from the point of view of an artist. I mean, who really cares whether I wake up every day and go to my studio and make and destroy and remake, refashion, resculpt, rethink, ponder my art? If I don't have the self-discipline to engage with my practice every single day, nothing will get made. So to this idea of self-discipline that I've been talking about, I would add the word rebellious. And admittedly, they seem as far apart as digital and analog, discipline and rebellion. How do they come together to fuel creativity? Well, for starters, creative people and artists should not do as they're told. I'm an artist to travel that road less traveled. I'm there to look within myself and find a truth that has not been explored before. I'm there to take that leap of creativity without a safety net. Art is a provocation to the imagination. Art, creativity, these are not things that should be confined or limited. It is an invitation to grab experience with both hands and see where it will take you. Creativity and art are ways at pushing the boundaries. But to push the boundaries, you do need to know where the boundaries lie. And this brings me to the idea of discipline as a noun, which refers to a discipline as a body of learning, which in my case is fine arts, a body of learning that you typically study as a higher form of learning in a college. So this is not to privilege the student with a master's program behind him over an autodidact. But in order to push the boundaries, you need to know where the boundaries are, what has gone before you. Otherwise, you could find yourself reinventing the wheel. And hand on heart, it's great to study art. I mean, it's great to study. Because just as with any other discipline, fine arts too has behind it this weight of praxis and politics and knowledge and learning and trial and error and a philosophy. And it's rewarding and enriching to experience this. But with a healthy dose of rebellious discipline. When I say this, I have this amusing memory, and I should add that it's retrospectively amusing because at the time it was not, of going through my own master's program where the teachers would constantly tell us to push, to destroy, to change what we were doing, to try out new things. It was very rewarding and very enriching, but also a fairly hazardous exercise with its ups and its downs. But with great discipline, I embraced this idea. I tried to try out the new forms of art they were talking about, such as performance. I tried the anti-aesthetic and making ugly art. I pushed and I tried and I pushed and pushed and pushed till one day I rebelled. I thought there was no need really to change the core of why it is that I make art. So I rebelled against newness for the sake of newness and turned to the oldest art form there is, which is drawing with a very humble pencil. So these are examples of my art, and they're all done with just a pencil. This is called nocturnes, 3 movements of a crossing. And as you will see, there is an enormous amount of detail embedded in the work. And it's all done with just a pencil. So you see, I was trying to rebel against the hierarchy of you in art where you draw and then you paint. I thought, why can't I paint with a pencil? The other thing I thought about was how can drawing become an experiential encounter rather than things on a wall? And I created these architectural installations, these labyrinths, these mazes that you would navigate and experience the art in your own very personal space as a very intimate encounter. And the drawings and the text would lead you to a very specific journey. There were sometimes mirrors where you would see yourself walking through this labyrinth and become a participant in the art. These are slides from a work called I Sing the Body Electric, which talked about choice and chance. The other thing I did was to appropriate the language of science for my art. Science is not my subject matter, but it is a language. And by looking through telescopes and microscopes and scanning tunneling electron microscopes, you come to where the cutting edge of knowledge and thinking of human activity is today. And these are used for my art. For example, the dots which make up my work is not really an ode to pointillism, but to the thought that a coagulation of tiny infinitesimal particles make up the living universe, and a tiny collection of these particles make up the world of my drawing. So you see, this combination of discipline and creativity took me to places that I never thought that I would go to. And here is another work of mine, a serial work showing a series of drawings. And I admit that it is an oxymoron, rebellion and creativity coming together as rebellious creativity, and not something that's necessarily easy to practice in your everyday life, but it is possible with, thinking about it and doing it to make it a gift to your creative self. For each of you, whether you are students or educators or doctors or lawyers or engineers, each one of you has that creative space within you. It is when you get in touch with that creative space that you're able to scale heights that you never thought you would scale, make things that you never thought you would make. And so if there is one thought I can leave you with today, it is this. In your creative sphere, be disciplined about rebelling every single day. Thank you.